Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Tesla. It is time for another update, and today we'll be discussing the structure which has succeeded to form another high as expected, or rather as preferred, in the yellow interpretation. But before we get there, I would like to go quickly through the larger time frame for any of you who might be new, and I decided to showcase the orange interpretation once more before we leave it only as an alternative scenario in the background. So while it is still possible and nothing is really stopping the orange interpretation from playing out, I probably prefer to focus here on the green scenario from now on the chart. So in the orange scenario we have a hyper bullish assumption of a series of 1-2 setups to have formed within this area, and then we would expect another 1-2 setup to be forming right now, because we are tracking a diagonal structure in this area and we cannot really be tracking this as an actual wave 3. So with that said, while this interpretation is still perfectly valid, I will prefer to focus here from now on the green scenario, where we actually track here a series of 1-2 setups, and then this would be an unfolding wave 3 where we are in the fifth wave to the upside right now. So even in this scenario we actually expect still for the continuation higher even after this fifth wave is complete, but it might be within a not so outlandish assumption of a hyper bullish wave 3 to be expected afterwards. Now with that said, in either scenario we were tracking the same pattern in this area, which is here presented in white as a diagonal structure to the upside, where we have a wave 1 complete, a wave 2 complete, and now we would be in the wave 3 to the upside where we have an A, B, C structure, and right now we are unfolding in the wave C. There is of course still the red interpretation that would allow basically a larger reset within the area of support, although right now it is a very low probability scenario compared to what we have here in white. Yeah, we did break the relevant resistance levels for the red interpretation. I can actually even go ahead and remove this area of resistance, and we don't really need to be tracking internally this structure to the downside in red, because yeah, we broke here above the previous wave B top, making it very unlikely to actually still work out. Now within this smaller time frame we are tracking even a potential impulse to actually be forming within this wave C to the upside, and before we get into its structure I wanted here to point out some ideal targets. So for the larger wave 3 we are looking here at an ideal target, the 138.2% extension of the wave 1, which is only around the $615 level. Yeah, around that area anyway. It is not perfectly drawn. And then if we want to be looking for an ideal target for the wave C in this area, we can actually track here the 100% extension of the wave A, which is much higher here, the $755 level. Now this is probably a more expected target for me, actually based on the internal structure, but as I always say, it is an ideal target. We don't need to get there, and we certainly don't need to stop there either. Now internally within this structure, as I was mentioning, we are tracking even a potential impulse in this area, and we still have here the interpretation of a diagonal structure to be forming. And while both of them are active interpretations, because we did hold both areas of support and we did touch here both areas of support within this correction, I am going to focus mostly on the white scenario, especially as long as we manage to hold the relevant areas of support, and the white interpretation would be likely the first scenario to fail. Now there are some more details around these ideas, but we won't really focus on them. They are not really relevant for what we have at hand. They may play out in certain ways we haven't necessarily brought to the channel here, but again, those aren't details that should concern us right now. And here in the smaller time frame in the previous video, we actually have quite a few details ongoing. So we have been tracking in this area a 5-wave move to be forming to the upside, and in the previous video I did provide you a couple of ideas. So we have an ending diagonal to be forming in this area, where we have the wave 1, the wave 2 down here, and then a wave 3 to the upside. Within this wave 3 we had enough waves to consider it complete in the previous video, and we did have here a larger area of support for the wave 4 correction, and we did even reach it here. but within the yellow interpretation, I was actually tracking a possible direct extension higher in this area, and I believe we have actually succeeded in doing so. Now, in this wave 5 in yellow, we are actually extending this wave 3 in white, yeah, and even this internal wave C in white, which is part of the wave 3, and then we even held here the area of support internally within this yellow interpretation. We pushed perfectly into the 50% retracement. Everything is basically perfect. Maybe it's not ideal that I would probably have to be tracking this A, B, C movement, where the wave B would be a triangle, but those are details that we shouldn't necessarily focus on too much. Now, assuming that we have reset, we have formed a new top, a new high within this wave 3, I can be looking for an updated area of support here in the correction in a wave 4. That would now be between the $475.3 all the way down to the $439.4 level. Now, with that said, it is possible for us to actually consider that this was still the previous wave 3 top. We had here the wave 4 already unfold, and we had the fifth wave to the upside, so I do want to caution you. It is technically possible for us to consider this overall larger fifth wave to the upside complete, even though I do prefer still continuation higher. We don't need any additional highs for this structure to be complete, and we could be in a much more significant correction here in a wave 4, considering, yeah, basically, if we have this wave 5 complete, we would have this wave 3 complete, which would actually allow us to track here a 1, 2, a 3, and then a wave 4 correction in this area. In such a scenario, we can even add a larger count to be tracking internally. I can even remove this larger area of support, but within this larger structure, we have an even larger area of support, basically, that would be here between the 23.6% retracement, so around the $441.5 level. Actually, let me choose here this, but yeah, around the $441.5 level all the way down to the $385.5 level, where as long as we hold here the 50% retracement, we can actually still continue to look for continuation higher within this larger wave 3, which indeed makes entering in a position within this smaller time frame a lot more difficult, because even if we fail to hold here the internal area of support for the wave 4 and form an internal fifth wave to the upside, we may still be able to hold the larger area of support for the wave 4, which is overlapping, basically, actually a continuation of the internal area of support for the wave 4. So while there isn't a quick invalidation of the overall impulsive and bullish scenario to the upside, there also isn't a clear gap that gives you an actual edge within this smaller time frame. Because yeah, if you actually enter in a position here in the smaller time frame, you can't really be considering that, okay, stop loss below the 61.8% retracement would allow me to cut losses and enter at a much better rate, because that would be actually within the larger area of support in the wave 4. So it is a more difficult area, and if we are to consider that internally within this structure that we are tracking here in this fifth wave to the upside, we only had a tiny correction in the wave 2, I also wouldn't expect to have a large correction within this wave 4. And technically, this wave 4 has sufficient waves to be complete, but it is not necessarily that easy to just assume that, okay, this wave 4 is done because the wave 2 was a quick one and we can start looking for a fifth wave to the upside already. No, because this could also face easily some extensions lower. Now, with that said, it is perfectly possible for us to consider that this wave 4 is complete, and we can even track here some internal levels of resistance for such an idea, for a signal that we should be starting to move higher. And probably I would start watching here the levels. Actually, let's track this in yellow. The levels up to the $485.8 level for the invalidation, or not necessarily invalidation, but for a shift in the probabilities that this structure could extend lower, either within a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or within an A, B, C, where the wave C would have only formed the wave 1 just yet. So here a break above the 78.6% retracement would be quite relevant, and then for the larger structure to the downside, I would need a break even higher above the 78.6% retracement for this entire movement to the downside, which is up to the 493.4 level, where if we manage to break above that level, well, it would be a signal to me that this structure is likely not going to extend lower, and even if we form a large wave 4 or a larger pattern to the downside, this would be probably something like an A wave down, and this would be something like a wave B up, or yeah, who knows, potentially a 1-2 setup. But at the moment, we don't necessarily have a clear 5-wave structure to the downside, whereas if we form here a 1, 2, 3, 4th and a 5th, where in the 5th, if we would actually still need a B and a C to have it complete, yeah, then it may be more clear and more likely to be looking for a large downtrend correction, which would likely signal that we shouldn't even necessarily look for a wave 4 in this area, but for the larger wave 4 correction into the much deeper area of support. And for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.